Welcome to NVL Travel Documentary. Most travel documentaries show you the beauty, the skylines, the monuments, the golden coasts. But what if I told you there's another side, one hidden behind the postcard perfect views? This is a journey into the shadows of one of the world's wealthiest countries, where nearly 1 million people sleep on concrete, trapped between addiction, poverty, and the rising tide of crime. Behind the glitz of New York and the sunshine of Los Angeles lies a human crisis that's growing too big to ignore. At NVL Travel Documentary, we don't just bring you places, we reveal the truth behind the headlines, the facts about countries that most cameras won't show. This isn't just a country documentary, it's a wake-up call. What happens when the American dream becomes a nightmare? Stay with us, because the story you're about to witness will change the way you see the world. Number 1. A nation in crisis. When the streets become home. In 2024, the United States crossed a line it can no longer ignore. The number of people experiencing homelessness surged by 18%, reaching nearly 800,000, an all-time high. That's not just a statistic, that's almost 1 million souls without a place to call home. Picture this: a man brushing his teeth with bottled water outside a gas station, a woman sleeping curled up in the backseat of her car, her child next to her, hugging a stuffed animal. These aren't rare exceptions, they're becoming the norm. And the most painful part? This is happening in one of the wealthiest nations on earth. So, how did we get here? It starts with the housing market, a balloon that never stopped rising. In cities like San Francisco and New York, even the smallest studio apartment can cost more than what a full-time worker earns in a month. Over the past decade, average rents have climbed by over 40%, while the federal minimum wage hasn't moved an inch. That math doesn't work, not for a waitress, not for a security guard, not for most of us. Meanwhile, affordable housing is vanishing like smoke. Developers chase luxury profits, public housing budgets are gutted. Today, for every 100 low-burn households, there are fewer than 40 affordable rental units available nationwide. It's like musical chairs with too many people and no music left. But housing alone isn't the full story. There's a quiet epidemic fueling this crisis: mental illness and addiction. Thousands of people on the street are living with untreated trauma, schizophrenia, or substance use disorders. But the safety nets meant to help them? They're full of holes. Overburdened clinics, months-long waiting lists. In many places, help simply doesn't exist. And let's not forget the bigger picture, the collapse of our social safety net. Programs meant to protect people from falling through the cracks, like unemployment aid or disability support, are outdated, underfunded, and painfully slow. Instead of being lifelines, they've become mazes. Many never make it out. I once spoke with a man in Phoenix who said, "I didn't start on the street. I ended up here when the system forgot me." This isn't just a housing crisis, it's a moral crisis. It's a mirror held up to the fractures in our society. And unless we address all the layers, housing, healthcare, income inequality, and policy failure, we'll keep watching this number grow year after year until it becomes too big to look away from. Number 2, 5 cities, 1 crisis. the faces behind the numbers. Los Angeles, California. Let's begin where the crisis is most visible, Los Angeles, California. Known for its Hollywood glamour and endless sunshine, Los Angeles now also holds a darker title, the city with the highest number of homeless individuals in the United States. As of early 2025, more than 75,000 people in Los Angeles County are experiencing homelessness. That's more than the entire population of a small city. And the reasons are painfully clear. The average rent in Los Angeles now hovers around $2,500 per month. For many residents, especially those earning minimum wage or relying on part-time jobs, that figure is simply out of reach. Even a shared room in a rundown neighborhood can swallow up most of a person's income, leaving little left for food, healthcare, or transportation. Nowhere is this crisis more concentrated than in Skid Row, a 50-block area in downtown LA. It's a place where tents line the sidewalks like rows of sorrow, where people live shoulder to shoulder in conditions marked by illness, hunger, and despair. Some have lived there for years, caught in a cycle of poverty and institutional neglect. To its credit, the city has responded with initiatives, building temporary shelters, offering transitional housing, and expanding mental health outreach. But the brutal truth remains: demand still dwarfs supply. For every one person who finds shelter, 2 more are left waiting, lost in the shuffle of bureaucratic backlogs and underfunded programs. And so, the crisis grows. Los Angeles isn't just a city struggling with homelessness. It's become a symbol of how modern urban life, with all its prosperity, can still fail those most in need. And when the streets of Skid Row start to resemble a refugee camp more than a neighborhood, we have to ask, what kind of society lets this happen in plain sight? 2. New York City. From the West Coast, we travel east straight into the heart of New York City, a city of towering ambition, dazzling lights, and endless movement. But beneath the surface, the cracks are growing deeper. New York currently ranks second in the nation for its homeless population. As of 2025, over 68,000 people across the 5 boroughs are without stable shelter, and many of them have turned to an unlikely refuge, the city's sprawling subway system. When the sun goes down, subway stations transform into makeshift shelters. Entire cars become beds. Platforms become bedrooms. For thousands, this underground world offers what the streets cannot: a roof, warmth, and at least a small sense of safety. The reasons are disturbingly familiar. In Brooklyn alone, the average rent has surged to nearly $3,000 per month. That's not a luxury condo price, that's just a modest 1-bedroom apartment. In a city where living paycheck to paycheck is the norm, a single missed rent payment can trigger a spiral: eviction, job loss, and suddenly a life unravels. Some became homeless after a medical emergency, others after a breakup, many simply because the rent came due and the money didn't. Yes, New York has one of the largest shelter systems in the country. It has outreach workers, mobile health teams, and emergency housing units. But the demand is crushing. Mental health services in particular are overwhelmed. There are waiting lists for therapy, weeks-long delays for prescriptions, too many fall through the cracks before help can arrive. It's a cruel irony. In a city known for never sleeping, tens of thousands must stay awake out of fear, cold, or danger. New York's skyline might scrape the clouds, but its human crisis runs deep underground. Until we fix the systems meant to catch people before they fall, more and more will end up in the shadows, just trying to survive until morning. 3. San Francisco. A city perched on rolling hills, kissed by ocean fog, and once hailed as the heart of progress. But today, it holds a sobering distinction: the highest rate of homelessness per capita in the United States. Let that sink in. For every 100 residents in San Francisco, roughly 1 is without a home. That's a crisis not just in numbers, but in visibility, raw, immediate, and impossible to ignore. As of 2025, the average monthly rent here is close to $3,500. That's the price of simply having four walls and a roof in a city where even a modest studio can feel like a luxury. But what's most jarring isn't just the cost, it's the contrast. Across from the glass towers of billion-dollar tech companies, you'll find rows of tents flapping in the wind, men and women sleeping steps away from the offices of those shaping the digital future. It's a scene that looks like satire, except it's real. Beyond housing, San Francisco is facing a dual emergency: addiction and mental health. The city's Tenderloin district has become ground zero for the fentanyl crisis. Overdoses now claim lives on a near-daily basis. Many of those on the streets aren't just unhoused, they're battling trauma, psychosis, and substance dependence, with nowhere to turn. City leaders are caught in a moral tug-of-war. On one side, residents demand cleaner sidewalks and the removal of encampments. On the other, advocates fight to protect the only homes many people have left. Should we build more shelters or clear the tents? But here's the truth: moving people from sidewalks to nowhere changes nothing. Without stable housing, access to rehab, and consistent mental health care, San Francisco is more than a postcard. It's a cautionary tale about inequality in plain sight. The question now isn't just what happened, it's what will we choose to do next? From California, we head south to Houston, Texas. Unlike many other cities, Houston tried something bold. In 2011, it embraced a model called Housing First, a simple yet powerful idea: give people a stable place to live before tackling addiction, employment, or mental health. And the results? Remarkable. Since the program began, the city has reduced its homeless population by over 63%. That's not just progress, that's transformation. But here's the catch: success doesn't mean perfection. While housing costs in Houston are relatively lower, around $1,200 per month, it's still out of reach for thousands earning minimum wage or living on disability checks. And Houston's sheer size makes it difficult to reach everyone. There are still pockets of homelessness scattered across freeways, underpasses, and abandoned lots hidden in plain sight. And even for those who do receive help, not all journeys are linear. Some people fall through the cracks again, slipping back onto the streets due to relapse, trauma, or simply a lack of long-term support. Houston shows us that change is possible, but it must be continuous, compassionate, and consistent. Now let's head back to California, to San Jose, the wealthy neighbor in the shadow of Silicon Valley. San Jose has the fourth highest rate of homelessness nationwide, around 363 people for every 100,000 residents. That might sound like just a number, but behind it are families living in RVs parked behind strip malls, children doing homework by flashlight because their homes have wheels instead of foundations. The cost of living here? Astronomical. Rent averages over $3,000 per month. This, in the very region that builds the world's most powerful technology. It's a brutal irony. In the land of innovation, basic shelter is still a luxury. More than half of San Jose's homeless population is living with untreated mental illness or battling addiction. And while the city has made strides with mobile clinics and tiny home villages, the need outpaces the supply, again and again. San Jose is a place where billionaires launch rockets, while their neighbors build shelters out of tarp and plywood. The question we keep asking isn't just how did we get here, but why do we stay here? Number 3, the root of the collapse: why the system fails. So far, we've seen the symptoms, but what about the roots? What's really driving America's homelessness crisis? Let's break it down. First, a housing crisis decades in the making. The United States is short more than 7 million affordable housing units. That's not a gap, it's a chasm. Developers chase luxury profits, building high-end condos while ignoring the working poor. And public housing? It's been shrinking fast. Across the entire country, there are only about 1.1 million public housing units left bare, barely a bandage on a bleeding wound. Meanwhile, over 3.6 million eviction filings were recorded in 2022 alone. In many cities, all it takes is one missed paycheck, one hospital bill, one rent hike, and you're out. Second, growing economic inequality. In 2024, the United States posted a record GDP of $27 trillion. But most Americans didn't feel richer. Why? Because the top 1% controls over 32% of the nation's wealth, while the bottom 50% shares just 2.6%. The job market is now split down the middle, high-paying roles for the highly skilled and low-wage, unstable work for everyone else. For millions, there's no ladder, just a trap door. Third, broken and inconsistent policy. The federal housing budget through the Department of Housing and Urban Development sits at about $70 billion per year, but experts say we need nearly $200 billion just to catch up. It's a massive shortfall. To make matters worse, there's no unified national approach. In some states, especially conservative red states, the focus is on clearing camps and enforcing vagrancy laws. In liberal blue states, the strategy leaned toward housing and services, but without federal coordination, it's like patching a sinking ship with duct tape. Fourth, mental health and addiction. Roughly 1 in 4 homeless individuals suffer from severe mental illness, and about 38% struggle with substance use. But access to treatment? That's a crisis in itself. Many rehab and mental health facilities have waiting lists of 6 months or longer. Without stable housing, how can anyone recover? How can they keep appointments, follow prescriptions, or even feel safe enough to rest? And finally, the collapse of the safety net. Cash assistance through TANF, the temporary assistance for needy families, reaches only 21% of eligible applicants. Food stamps from SNAP help cover groceries, but not rent. Disability support, on average it takes 7 months just to process an application, and 40% are denied outright. In short, the system isn't just fraying, it's failing, and the people paying the price aren't nameless statistics, they're veterans, parents, workers, kids. America's homelessness crisis isn't just about tents on sidewalks, it's about a society stretched thin, where those who fall are left with nowhere to land. Number 4, what is being done? Progress or patchwork? So is anyone doing anything about this? The answer is yes, but it's complicated. Let's start with housing. The federal government has leaned heavily on something called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, a program that helped build around 100,000 new affordable housing units in 2024. It's a good start, but still far from the millions needed. Cities have stepped up too. Los Angeles, for example, has committed over $1.2 billion to build 10,000 units of permanent supportive housing. That's housing paired with services like counseling, job training, and medical care. And back in Texas, Houston continues to shine as a rare success story. The city receives about $50 million each year from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. With that funding, they've focused on getting people housed first, then connecting them to help. And it's working, mostly. On the mental health front, there's also movement. The federal agency, SAMHSA, to Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, now operates with a budget of around $6.5 billion. Cities like San Francisco have introduced creative solutions, including 20 mobile mental health vans that drive into encampments, offering counseling and care where it's needed most. Then there's employment, a key ingredient for staying housed. The federal government has pledged $500 million toward job training programs, teaching skills like coding, construction, and caregiving, because in today's world, a second chance often starts with a skill. But not all government action has been helpful. Under the Trump administration, tax cuts for corporations sparked short-term market growth, but also widened the wealth gap. The rich got richer. Meanwhile, funding for affordable housing was slashed, and incentives leaned heavily toward luxury developments. Worse still, tariffs on imported materials raised the cost of construction. That slowed down affordable housing projects, especially in cities already struggling to build fast enough. So yes, change is happening, but the question is it fast enough? Is it bold enough? Or are we still just patching holes in a dam that's already breaking? Number 5. The road forward. Real solutions, real hope. In Austin, Texas, there's a community called Community First Village. It's a neighborhood of tiny, sustainable homes built specifically for people coming out of chronic homelessness. These homes are affordable, dignified, and deeply human. And guess what? It works. Other cities can follow suit. For example, in Santa Clara County, there are over 1,200 acres of used public land that could be transformed into housing instead of just sitting empty. It's not a question of space, it's a question of will. Second, fix the safety net, starting with health. Mental illness and addiction aren't moral failures, they're medical conditions. But our current system is stretched to the breaking point. We propose doubling the budget for SAMHSA, which would allow the creation of 10,000 new treatment beds and the hiring of 5,000 specialized care workers. That's not charity, that's infrastructure. Then there's cash assistance. Raising TANF funding to $100 billion could support half of all eligible families, up from just over 20% today. And what about disability aid? People currently wait 7 months or more just to be reviewed. That timeline needs to shrink to 2 months, because no one should fall through the cracks while waiting in line for help. Third, bring business to the table. Tech giants like Amazon and Google have already started to help, contributing $40 million to build over 1,000 microhomes. Imagine if more followed. In New York, tax breaks could be offered to landlords who unlock 10,000 vacant apartments, turning ghost units into real homes. Nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity are already doing the work. What they need now is scale, funding. Because ending homelessness isn't about a miracle, it's about coordination, commitment, and compassion. This is not an impossible problem. We've solved bigger ones. But we need to stop treating homelessness like a side effect of poverty and start treating it like a national emergency we can end. Number 6. This could be you, a wake-up call for us all. I'll be honest, this film changed me. When I first began this journey, I thought I had a grasp on what homelessness meant. I had seen the headlines, read the statistics, but it wasn't until I sat across from someone who lost everything, yet still spoke with grace and dignity, that I truly understood the weight of it. A woman living in her van with 2 young children. A man once running a small building couldn't pay. And that's when it hit me. All it takes is one thing. One lost job, one emergency surgery, one eviction notice slid under the door. In a country where savings barely last a month, any one of us could be next. Homelessness isn't some distant problem. It isn't a statistic tucked away in policy reports. It's real, it's human, and it's happening right now in every city, on every block. It could be your neighbor. It could be someone you passed this morning without noticing. It could be you. We cannot keep turning away. We cannot keep treating this as someone else's burden, because the truth is, this is a shared failure, and it demands a shared responsibility. We need to shift the way we think. Housing, healthcare, mental health support, these are not luxuries. They are not rewards for those who try hard enough. They are basic human rights, and until we start treating them that way, not as charity, not as favors, but as foundations of a fair society, this crisis will never truly end. What we need is not just better policy, we need a cultural revolution. One that is rooted in empathy. One that says, in the richest nation on earth, no one should be sleeping on concrete. One that understands, ending homelessness is not impossible, it's a matter of choice. And now, that choice belongs to all of us. So now, I want to leave you with a question. Can America turn this crisis around? Can we become a nation where housing is a right, not a privilege? Can we choose people over profits, compassion over indifference? The answer depends on what we do next. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel so we can keep shining a light on hidden stories. Leave a comment, your voice matters, and it fuels the conversation. Share this video with someone, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor. Because awareness is the first step toward action, and change only happens when enough of us care enough to speak up. Together we can rewrite this story. For them, for us, for the future.